is everybody today? So I wanted to thank everybody who might be participating in the poll that I posted. I hear you, and I will try and post more information. Based on the number of views that I am seeing of the videos that I've been doing, we should start to engage in a more two-way conversation about how you're trying to get from point A to point B, right? Everything that I've been teaching you up until now has all been about creating functional abdominals. And there are certain realities to the abdominal structure that dictate the kind of work that we've been doing. So today is definitely going to be all about functional abs, but I think in some ways it might surprise you because we have this concept about how abdominals should work and what the goals are in creating functional abdominals, right? Some people look at a six-pack and somebody who's really, really chiseled and says, oh, that person must have functional abdominals. And the reality is that I would challenge that. I taught a class yesterday with a client who's been working with me for 9 years. And we have been really working hard on creating functional abdominals. And we got halfway through her session where we predominantly worked on the abdominals. And she said, I haven't really felt like I've been working hard the whole session. Your abdominals aren't supposed to work that hard. They are there to support your spine. And they are there to help hold in your organs, and they are there to mobilize the spine, and they are there to connect your rib cage to your pelvis, right? It is only the cultural bias that we have about abdominal muscles and how they should work that has landed us where we are. So I am not saying even for a moment that I don't understand that weight is an issue for so many. But the shape you hold today is a direct result of how you use your body. Some women you may notice, some women carry their weight all in their hips. They don't carry it in their middle. Some women carry it way up high, but not way down low, right? Some carry it all in their tush, right? Those shapes, regardless of the size of the shape, is a direct result of how you use your body. First and foremost, abdominal muscles need you to have alignment, or things get out of whack and can't engage. And so I want to spend all of today working on abdominals because I want you to feel that you've been heard, and creating functional abdominals was something that everyone said that they wanted and needed from this group, and it was one of the reasons that you were here. If weight loss is an issue for you, I will start to post things that speak to the science of weight loss. And we will go from there and see what we can do to keep you motivated, keep you feeling supported. But just so you know, every single video that I've posted up until now has had some direct implication on how you use your body, and therefore how you do or don't use your abdominal muscles, right? Even the stuff in the legs. If I'm standing up and I am sending all of my weight forward, like this, then if this tissue is not strong and functional, it will start to move out and away from me, right? If I stand back, but I roll my pelvis forward, right? Again, I am sending all of this tissue forward, and at some point, without strength and resiliency in that tissue, it is going to start to give away. And because of the way the abdominal structure is, right, with the rectus that has the line down the middle, as we've talked about before, those things start to open up. And I know this intimately. I got some pushback at one point because weight is not my issue, but it had been my issue. I was a heavy kid most of my early life. And as a heavy kid, you never quite kind of lose that focus. I've never really outgrown it. I wished and prayed my whole childhood that I could be thin like all my friends. And then at 22, God gave me what I wished for. And I got Crohn's disease and went from my largest weight, which was 172, to about 97 pounds. So because of that transition for myself, weight, good or bad, has never been my focus. Health, well-being, quality of life has always been my focus. And abdominals are a particular focus of mine because, as some of you may or may not know, right, I lost my colon, so I have an ostomy bag on my belly, and that automatically creates a less than optimal abdominal structure. I was told when my son, he was about 2.5, 3 years old when I got my ostomy, and I came through my ostomy just fine, and my doctor said, do not ever lift your son, you will herniate, and I cannot repair that once you've herniated. And I thought to myself, well, that's just crazy. My son is 2.5. He was my gift from God, my blessing. I said, I've got to be able to lift him. And someone suggested that I try Pilates because it was good for the core. And that is where my life took a right-hand turn. I fell in love with Pilates and how it made my body feel and how it gave me confidence in being able to lift my son because I knew how to engage my abdominals appropriately. And then within 1 year and 6 months of beginning Pilates, I reversed my osteoporosis. I was about 42, and the doctor said, you have the bones of an 85-year-old woman. And I thought I was going to have to start all those drugs, but I'd just come off 25 years of drugs because of the Crohn's. And I started doing Pilates, and I just kept doing Pilates. And 1 year and 6 months later, the doctor who had taken my bone scan said, you're a miracle. And I said, you're a medical doctor. There's no miracle happening here, or I would have cured the Crohn's a long time ago. I had reversed my osteoporosis to negligible osteopenia. And so I decided to figure out how that had all happened. And knowing that science had answers for me, I began to look and learn about how the structure works. And as it turns out, just like with almost everything in your body, bone gets signaled from the load, right? From the work that you do, right? If you are walking around and you're walking well, then you are loading your bones. If your bones have already started to weaken and you've already discovered that you have osteoporosis, there are 2 things that you need to do to reverse that for yourself. You need to be able to signal the bone, and you need to be able to add more than your normal weight. Your normal weight didn't add enough weight to signal the bone to grow stronger. When you add just a bit more, the body responds by stepping up to meet the demand. And everything in the body works that way. That's just the way your body works. You want to grow muscle, you're going to have to load the muscle to ask it to do more work than it did yesterday, and that's going to make the muscle stronger. That's the way it works. With bone, we need to be aligned, meaning that if I want my cervical spine to grow stronger, right, I have to have my head over the bones so that the bones are getting signaled appropriately. If I carry my head way out here, that is not going to be loading my cervical spine, regardless of how much weight I may or may not load it with, right? It is worth noting that when you're tested for bone strength, you're often tested at the wrist, at the lumbar spine, at the head of the femur, and often at the rib cage. And as most of you know from watching me, most people don't have their rib cage in an appropriate fashion, nor do they use the ribs to breathe 24/7, right? We don't load our wrists. So that's a great place to test for bone weakness, because you don't actually hang from vines the way you were designed, and you don't usually load the wrists by being in all fours, right? A lot of people even have issue and trouble in doing that. So today we're going to get into the abs again, and we're going to focus on giving them both load and function. But as you know from watching me, that's also going to require that we work a bit on our breathing and our rib cage. If you have not already watched the early videos on breathing, shoot me a note if this all doesn't make sense to you. I'm going to go ahead and have you immediately help yourself down onto whatever surface you're using, whether it's a bed or the floor. Either is fine. Again, I want you to be bolstered, meaning I want you to be able to get your head and your shoulders elevated enough that the bottom rib, right, can exist into the floor. If your abdominals are weak, you're going to use your hands to help you down onto the floor. And then you're going to roll over onto your back with your knees bent. Okay. Take a few breaths and recognize how much of you is in the floor, right? Can you just take a moment to let the ground and the floor hold you up rather than resisting the floor? Check in with the thighs. Ask them to relax down into the bowl of the pelvis, right? Check in with your sit bones, right? Those bones at the bottom of your tush, right? Bring your hands down to the bottom of the tush and check in and see, are those bones headed straight towards your heels? Check in with your pelvis, right? We've talked about that. Finger on the pubic bone, finger on the hip bone. Make sure that those points are living on the same plane of existence, completely parallel to the ground, right? We don't want the pubic bone higher than the hip bones. We don't want the pubic bone lower than the hip bones. And then check in underneath you and see that the bottom rib is comfortably into the floor already. Yeah? I want you to bring your hands to your belly and once again take some breaths. Take a second breath. I hope you guys can see my abdominals. I don't know if I should be closer to the camera or not. So I have one hand on my high abdominal area right underneath my sternum and one hand on the low area of my pelvis, the lower abdominals, right? Let's just remember that the six-pack attaches from the sternum down into the pubic bone, creating a whole band of tissue that goes from the bottom up to the top, right? The six-pack is where most people put a lot of attention and focus because it's part of what looks good. But the reality is that it's the tissue underneath that, the corset muscle, the transverse abdominis, which wraps all the way around the abdominals and inserts itself into the lumbar spine and disc. Yeah? That's actually really important, right? It's the innermost muscle. And we nicknamed it the corset because when you contract it, the fibers run across the body, and when you contract it, it actually cinches the waist like a corset. The way that we activate the transverse, and we're going to activate it on purpose so that you know you can find it and your brain becomes attached to it. So you're going to take a big breath. And as you exhale, you're going to draw your belly button towards the ground or the bed and kind of up into your nose. Yeah? So I want you to inhale, exhale and draw the belly into the spine and up towards your nose. Can you create that sensation, right? That sensation should start at the bottom near your pubic bone and come all the way up to the top. Yeah? So just try a few more times to activate the transverse. Now, it's likely that if you were exhaling and drawing that muscle in, that you didn't worry so much about breathing in the ribs, even though if you've been watching me, you know that that's important, because that's not really where most people breathe. And a lot of people who do yoga especially know that when they're on their back, breathing into the belly can be relaxing. That is not inaccurate. And when you're on your back, your organs have dropped, right, with gravity, all the way away from the upper layer of your abdominals down towards your spine. And so in this position, breathing into your belly is not a bad thing. It's just that breathing in your belly as a habit does not allow your belly to do the abdominal work it is supposed to do, which is to hold in your organs and bring stability to your spine. If you are breathing into your belly 24/7, there are times and moments when you are exposing your spine because it's not being stabilized, right? So in the next breath, I want you to inhale, however you do. I want you to exhale and again draw your belly button towards the spine. And this time I want you to hold it and not let it go as you take your next breath. Well, where are you going to breathe? Right? If you're used to breathing in your belly in this position, then the first thing that's going to happen is you're going to start to sound like this because you're going to be holding your breath, right? So let's shift our focus for just a moment and come into the ribs. I've put you in a position that should allow you to feel your ribs into the floor. It also has allowed the bones of your ribs to sit in such a way that it will be easier for them to open and close. Okay? So I want you just to take a moment. You can bring your hands and wrap them this way. You can wrap them across your chest. What I want you to do, though, is have some part of your hand on the back of you, right? So you can see I've just laid the top part of my hand underneath my rib cage. And now I'm going to see if I can make my ribs move as I inhale and exhale. Take an inhale. Take a long exhale. Take an inhale. Take a long exhale. As you exhale for the next few breaths, I want you to imagine that you are blowing one of those kid toys that's a pinwheel on a stick, right? It's a spinny thing. And you're going to blow and make that spin, making a very small noise. So we're going to inhale and we're going to exhale. Do two more. One more breath. Now, if that was already challenging for you, I would suggest that you stop here and focus on your breathing. You're in a good position to practice it, and it will only help you find the functional abs that you're looking for. If that was something that you can readily and easily do, then work with me in moving on to the next step, okay? So we're going to go ahead and bring our hands to our belly again so we can recognize what's happening. We're going to inhale, hopefully into the ribs. You're going to exhale and draw your belly button to the spine as you exhale. Now you're not going to let the contraction in your abdominals go, and you're only going to breathe into the ribs. It's not that they're not going to move at all, but they have no reason to move up and down if the diaphragm is being moved by the rib cage. Yeah? Excellent. If that is something that you can do, you can go ahead and relax the abs for just a second. We're going to take it up a notch and we're going to try and create some load for the abdominals, some work that the abdominals have to do. And all I want you to do is try the load by taking one foot heel off the ground and standing into your toe. And you see what I'm going to do? So that's all we're going to do, but we're going to do it with good abdominal contraction. Yeah? Okay. We're going to inhale. We're going to exhale and make sure that the belly button is toned. You should feel your waist cinching. And now you're going to inhale in the ribs. And you're going to exhale and lift the left heel off the ground. Inhale the heel back down. Inhale into the ribs. Exhale the right heel in off the ground. Bring your hands to your belly. And as you exhale and lift a heel off the ground, see if there are any changes in the abdominal tissue. Do you feel, as you're doing this, as if you are bearing down to take a poop? That would be bracing. Do you feel, as you're doing this and lifting a heel and staying contracted in your abdominals, that some of the abdominal tissue is pushing up into your hand as you lift the heel off the ground? Do you feel, as you're moving through this, again, just holding the abdominals toned and lifting a heel off the ground, do you feel as if you need to hold your breath? Or can you breathe easily as you do this? Optimally, none of those things would be happening as you lift the heel, right? We call that bracing, bearing down, or bulging, right? That means that the tissue here is not quite behaving as it should. If that's happening to you, then you know where your work is. It's in trying to do what we were doing in the lifting the heel off the ground and keeping the belly toned without any change in the abdominal tissue. If you were able to do that successfully, then you're able to take yourself to the next step. This time we're going to actually lift a whole leg up off the floor. So once again, we're going to inhale into the ribs. You're going to exhale and draw the belly button towards the ground, the bed, or whatever you're using and laying on top of. Right? And now you can feel the abdominals have cinched the waistline, right? You're able to maintain that. You can hear that I'm able to breathe and talk to you, even though I've contracted my transverse, this cinchy, waisty muscle that's in the inner core, right? I'm going to inhale in the ribs. I'm going to exhale. And I'm going to try and lift a leg without bulging, bracing, or bearing down in my belly. You can hear that I loaded just a little bit more, and so my voice actually sounded like it changed. See if you can exhale the other leg up, and then put it down. Inhale into the ribs. Exhale, holding the belly, and lift a thigh. Put it down. Inhale into the ribs. Exhale, keeping the belly toned. Bring up the right leg off the floor, right? My tushy is staying in the floor. My ribs aren't moving up and down. My spine is staying stabilized. And my belly is staying contracted and strong, right? Exhale the other leg. Inhale into the ribs and exhale. Lifting the thigh. One more on each leg. Excellent. Go ahead and relax. So likely you have felt a strong contraction. You've already felt that there's some abdominal work there. If your abs are strong, that wouldn't have felt like a lot of work. If your abs don't have the stamina to maintain that, then watching your form as you move through the next series of movements that we're going to do is really important. If you notice that your belly, I'm going to see if I can get closer, and I'm going to show you my belly, even with my ostomy bag. So if you notice that when you go to do the work, your belly pushes up towards the ceiling, that is a sign that things have fallen out and you need to go back to the previous step. If you notice that the belly lifts at all as you are trying to challenge the belly, then that would take you back to the previous step. If you cannot take a deep breath into your rib cage, then it will be really hard for you to use your abs moving forward, right? And I just want you to stay safe and not challenge yourself beyond what you are capable of doing, yeah? So let's just take a moment, bring your feet and knees together, take your palms up to the ceiling, and I want you to drop your knees to the left without lifting your right rib cage off of the floor, right? Welcome to your obliques. The obliques are like beauty pageant sashes that cross the body. If you are able to hold your right rib onto the floor while your knees are going to the left, then your abdominals are working to stabilize your spine and to keep your body on the ground. Part of your abdominal chain is stretching, and part of it is contracting. Anytime you bring two bones closer together, you are creating a muscle contraction. So in this position, my right inner thigh is actually working with my left oblique to create a line of tone that is maintaining the stretch and pull from my right oblique into my left inner thigh, right? Obliques are working, but muscles need to be able to relax. Exhale and bring your knees back to center, and then exhale and take your knees over to the right. Muscles need to be able to relax in order to contract. So one of the reasons that I do so much stretching and relaxing in the abdominals is it's really hard to contract a muscle that never relaxes, right? That is why you can actually become too strong in a muscle. A muscle that is too tight is not strong, it is weak. So you can overwork your muscles, and I think that that's often lost in the lessons about abdominals. Function does not mean too tight. Function does not mean too lax. Take a couple more breaths here as we stretch the obliques from the left into the right thigh. Excellent. Bring your knees back to center. Okay, there are two things that we want to make sure of before we take ourselves into anything that would be way challenging for the abdominals. We want to be able to make sure that we can work that lower area of the abdominals, which is often missed by people because we think of the abdominals as being right around our waistline, and we forget that all of the abdominal muscles connect into the pelvis, particularly the pubic bone. Because of that, our brain doesn't necessarily connect to those places. I've had both a cesarean section and the ostomy. So I have a lot of places in my abdominals where years ago, my brain had just stopped connecting into those parts of me. I exercise and I engage those muscles on purpose so that I can reestablish the nervous system connection between my brain and those muscles. Yeah, that's why we're doing these exercises for the abdominals. So I want you to go ahead and grab, whether it's your towel that you've been using, or maybe you have a yoga block. It doesn't matter what it is. You just want it to be even a pillow, right? You just want it to be about this wide apart. If it's a little wider, that's okay. I want you to go ahead and relax your legs down into the floor. You are still bolstered, so your rib cage is still in the floor. As you lengthened your legs into the floor, did your back lift up off the floor with the weight of the legs, right? If your quads and your legs are really tight, rolling the rib cage off the floor is going to be a likely consequence, yeah? You may need to re-engage the neutral pelvis and bring the pelvis back, and you'll notice that as you do that, the rib cage settles, right? Does that make your abdominals automatically feel as if they are on? It might. right? A lot of people, when they get their pelvis and their rib cage stacked and aligned, are really surprised that all of a sudden there's a feeling of tone throughout the core. Well, that's because the transverse only needs you to get these parts into the right place for it to be able to do its thing, which is one of the reasons that we're going to work on the alignment and awareness of what happens when we move our arms around. So go ahead and hold on to your pillow with your hands to the outside of the pillow, pushing inward just a bit to hold on to it, right? I don't want you gripping. Just kind of put your hands on the outside. You want to be able to see your elbow pits, yeah? So if you're doing this and you recognize that your elbows are sticking out to the sides, wrap them around so that your elbows are going towards your knees and you can see your elbow pits, yeah? That should have already brought your shoulder blades wide, okay? So our legs are down, our ribs are in the mat, we know that we're in a neutral pelvis, our arms are up over our head, holding onto the pillow. You are slowly, with each breath into the rib cage, going to take your arms back over your head. You're going to stop at the place where you feel as if your rib cage starts lifting up off the floor, right? We're using the upper abdominals near our ribs, because this is the thing. If you're going to hold on to the ribs in order to get a hold of your abdominals, you're not going to be able to breathe really easily, right? Now you're actually working at the diaphragm. If you get to about here and you're already lifting up, or this feels too challenging, go ahead and bend the knees, yeah? And play with and practice the sensations of having your abdominals engaged before you take the legs down into the floor, right? You can see here that I can breathe into my ribs without lifting my spine off of the floor, right? That's important, because when you lift your arms up over your head, if you're going to take the whole body out of alignment, your abdominals are not going to be able to work. And if what's over your head is heavy, like a suitcase going into the overhead compartment, you have the potential of hurting yourself just by getting your bags up overhead, right? We want to understand the connection between our arms and the abdominals, and the abdominals are there to protect your spine. So if they are not functional and able to activate appropriately, then your spine is not protected, right? So just take some breaths with the arms up overhead, and see how it feels and how your spine is engaging in the floor, right? Does the pelvis tilt in this position? Take 2 more breaths. And then lower the arms back down. So likely you notice you can bend your knees. That'll make it a little bit easier for you to be into the surface. You likely noticed some things about how your spine is being stabilized, how it feels to use the upper abdominals, right? While also trying to breathe into the rib cage. And you got a bit of a sense of what it means to load the abdominals a bit. Because look, your arms are heavy, right? That's already a load for some. We're now going to take the pillow that you had, and you're going to stick it between your knees. I'm going to actually use a yoga block. Anything about this size, yeah? And I want you to stick it between the knees, and I want you to squeeze whatever you've grabbed. And I want you to hold it between your knees and give a little squeeze to it. Not like grippy, right? But just a little bit of pressure, okay? We're going to take an inhale and exhale. And as you exhale, I want you to squeeze just a little bit harder. Take another inhale. And as you exhale, squeeze just a little bit. You are likely feeling an engagement of your pelvic floor now into the work that we are doing. See what's happening now that I've kind of highlighted you to the fact that it's going to actually be engaging. Take an inhale into the ribs, exhale the belly towards the spine and up towards your nose, right? Down and up. As you long exhale and squeeze whatever you've put between your knees. Do you feel the pelvic floor engaging? Yeah? That's getting you into your lower abdominals, and it kind of shows you how attached the pelvic floor is to your abdominal function, right? All this breathing, all this flowing, all this energy affects the pelvic floor dramatically. If you did not feel the pelvic floor at all, then I would like you to stop here, breathe in the ribs, draw the belly in and up, and continue to kind of explore creating some sort of sensation in your pelvic floor, okay? Because that's important, right? We need to be able to engage the lower abdominals, and we need to know that we can connect the legs, which are dramatically connected to the pelvic floor and your abdominals, to this whole chain of work, right? So that would be a good place to stop if you can't feel your pelvic floor at the moment. If you could feel the pelvic floor and you felt that contraction, then we'll take it up a notch and we'll see what we can do. Our ribs are down. We're going to do exactly what we've done up until now. You're going to inhale in the ribs, exhale the belly button towards the ground, and then up towards your nose. And on the next exhale, you're going to fold the legs towards your head, lifting your feet up off the ground, right? So check in with your abs, check in with your breathing. Can you breathe in your ribs and maintain that tone in your abdominals? Put your hands on your abs. Did you bulge? Did you brace? Is something pushing up towards the ceiling? If it is, go back and do some of the other steps that we've done, but don't continue forward, because now we're actually going to challenge our abdominals. We're going to inhale into the ribs, and we're going to exhale the knees away, taking our feet close to the floor but not touching the floor. And then inhale them back. Inhale again. Exhale the knees away. And then inhale the knees back. Exhale them away. Inhale them back. Check in and see, are your ribs lifting up off the ground as you take your knees away from your head? You may need to bolster a bit more so that they are grounded and planted. You may need to pause there and play with the nuance of this, right? I don't have to take my knees far away to challenge, right? Some of you may be able to hover the feet over the ground. Some of you may only be able to challenge by taking the knees away a little bit. Doesn't matter. Challenge is challenge. Make this your own. What we don't want is the spine losing stability as we try to use our legs. That doesn't make sense. And quite honestly, if it's happening here, it's happening everywhere, right? You're constantly losing stability in your spine. So not worth hurting yourself in order to move the legs, yeah? We'll take the knees down, back up one more time, and back up. So, did you feel your lower abs engaging and toning? Could you feel your inner thighs engaging? How about the pelvic floor, right? All of those parts are important. If those two movements, with the arms up overhead or your knees drawing away and back up, if either of those made your spine also move, then you are not engaging your abdominals in a way that is stabilizing your spine, and you should stop here, okay? For those of you who can find their core, appreciate the work, everything's working as we would want it to, you can take the next step with me. I'm going to move down just a little bit so I'm off my bolster a bit. Okay. You are going to hands down at your sides. Inhale. As you exhale, you're going to bring one leg up into tabletop, right? So the thigh is at a 90-degree angle to the pelvis, and the bottom part of your leg is sticking straight out away from you. Inhale, and as you exhale, right, draw the belly in. Make sure that the transverse is toned. You can feel your waistline cinching, and bring the other leg up into tabletop. If that made your back change position, stop, go back. Keep working on that part, right? That's where you're at, and that's fine, right? We're all in different places. If that was a challenge for you, but you did not feel yourself brace or bear down and no tissue bulged towards the ceiling, right? You've been holding your cinchy waistline, right? Now we're going to take a knee away from us. We're going to inhale into the ribs. Exhale and allow a knee to draw away from the body. Inhale it back. Inhale again. Exhale the other leg. Make that pinwheel sound so that you know you are not bearing down. Right? You've heard me talk, keep moving, about abdominopelvic pressure. It's almost impossible to hold pressure in the abdominals if you are making that pinwheel sound as you exhale. One more on each leg. Exhaling out, inhaling back, exhaling out, inhaling back. Take just a moment and bring your knees into your chest so that everything can relax. If any of this strained your low back, please leave me a message so that we can talk about what may or may not be happening for you. For some of you, if you are not used to using the transverse well, or with this much stamina, right? Because we've already been using that muscle for almost 45 minutes now. If you don't really have the stamina, then it's likely you're creating some sort of bracing. But this is the thing. Remember that that transverse muscle connects to the lumbar disc and vertebra. So likely if you're not used to the muscle pulling, and it would pull, if this is the spine, those muscles are going to be pulling this way. That's how that muscle loads the disc and the spine and the lumbar. If you're not used to that pull, sometimes the low back gives a little bit of what the heck are you doing, right? Not to worry, but let's make sure that you're staying safe, okay? All right, so you've been using the abdominals, the right abdominals, almost the entire session so far. Let's take it up even one more notch. Now, you've heard me say this before. You do not want to be doing crunches. No crunches. Should I say no one more time? Why do we not want to be doing crunches? We do not want to be doing crunches because crunches technically are bringing the pelvis and the rib cage closer together, right? Yes, that is a contraction of the rectus, right? Of the six-pack, right? That is a contraction. But if you are not already engaging the transverse, that inner corset muscle that we have been working so hard to help you find for the whole hour, then in point of fact, you are creating a six-pack that will live way out here. So all those people who kill themselves at the gym doing tons of crunches and have poochies, right? All of those people are simply doing the wrong exercise but beating themselves up because they're so sure that they've been killing themselves to work their abs. The transverse, right, will pull the six-pack and the obliques in. So it is the muscle you want to engage first, okay? Just want to put that out there. All right. Okay. So we said we're going to take it up a notch. You are going to bring your hands to the nape of the neck. Your pelvis is in neutral. You're going to inhale and exhale and find your cinchy transverse muscle. And then you are going to lift the head, not by thinking about bringing it closer to the pelvis, but by thinking about pushing your bottom rib more deeply into the surface below you. Okay? Can you hang out here? Right? Take some rib breaths. Can you breathe? Right? If you can't breathe, it's likely that you are bearing down or bracing. That would not be healthy. Not going to create a functional abdominals. Does your neck hurt? Right? That may mean that your thoracic spine, your upper spine, is not activating in order to support your head. Try taking your elbows up towards the ceiling. Right? Now, if you have really strong abdominals, this is likely not a challenge for you. Right? I have very functional abdominal muscles. This for me is not work. Right? I mean, it is work. But it's not the work that's going to make you go, oh my God, Sam, you killed my abs. It's just letting my abdominals do what my abdominals do, right? So if you'd like to challenge yourself a little bit more, the first thing we'll do is go back to one of the first exercises that we did where we lifted a leg up off the foot up off the ground, right? So let's just try that and see what happens when we challenge the abdominals more. I'm going to inhale in my ribs. I'm going to exhale, and as if I could draw my leg up using my abdominal muscles, I'm going to exhale and draw my left leg up. I'm going to inhale it down. I'm going to inhale again, make sure everything's engaged, and I'm going to exhale the right knee. Let's just go back and forth, 3 more on each side. Left leg, and down. Right leg, and down, left leg, and down, right leg, and down, left leg, and down, right leg, and down. Last one on each side, left side, and right side. You can go ahead and release your head back to your bolster and see how that feels, right? So the question you need to ask yourself is, as I was doing that, you could actually watch your abdominals. Were they bulging, bracing, or bearing down, right? All of those things would mean you need to go back to some of the first steps and figure out where in all of that things kind of go amiss for you. But if you were able to do that just fine, go ahead and again bring your hands back to the nape of the neck. Inhale, and as you exhale, lift the head off your bolster, drawing the belly button in and up, feeling that cinchy line, and take 2 breaths into the ribs and exhaling so you know what you're about. We're going to take our right hand out away from behind our head, and we're going to send it with energy over the left knee. All we're going to do is get the armpit, right? This is all arm, right? You're going to be surprised at how a little movement works the oblique chain. So we're just going to exhale and send the arm out with energy. 5 more. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Do not release. Bring the right hand back behind the head. Take the left hand across to the right knee. And again, we're just going to pulse the hand over the right knee. And we're going to exhale. 5 more. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Go ahead and release. So likely that gave you, hopefully, a bit of feeling about your obliques, right? I'm going to have you take your left leg down into the floor, take your right leg up into tabletop, and you're going to take that left leg and you're going to roll all the way over onto your left side. Okay? We're going to take the right arm, you're going to drop it back behind you. You don't have to take it to the floor if you can't, not a problem. Likely, because of all of our issues, you are feeling a stretch in the right armpit, right breast area, right? We're just going to take the arm up towards our ear and around to the side. Sam, you might be saying, you said this was going to be all about abdominals. Why are you having us do this little twisty thing and using our arm? Anytime you use your arms and your legs, particularly in a position that is challenging to your spine, you are using your abdominals, right? So this is abdominal work. We just don't think of it as abdominal work because it's not something that looks like a crunch or makes us groan, right? If we want functional abdominals, we're going to have to accept the fact that first and foremost, alignment and being able to activate muscles when our brain tells our muscles to activate, right? Whether that's conscious or unconscious. That's how we get from point A to point B, yeah? Okay. Do 2 more sweeps with the arm. Also, if you want a waistline and you don't have one, it's all about obliques, and twisting is your best friend. You want a waistline, you got to be able to twist. That's just how the muscles need to be able to activate. Go ahead and roll back over onto your back. You're likely going to notice that your right leg is way longer than your left leg, right? You automatically created length and release in the body just by moving in a way that may be unusual to you. We're going to go ahead and take the left leg up. Our right leg is in the floor. You're going to take your left leg and you're going to swing it all the way over so that you roll over onto your right side. We're going to take the right arm now, back behind us. You're going to take it down by the leg and then up towards your ear, right? If you do not have the range of motion in your chest to be able to take the load of the arm out, bend the arm and just take the elbow. If that is too much for you, that mobility in the shoulder, all you have to do is open up and twist and just let that be where you stay. That's okay, yeah? For those of you who can move the arm, you're going to get a lovely stretch into the chest, the armpit, and the arm. And quite honestly, for anybody with lymphedema, right, working on your mobility and activating muscles so that they are long and strong is way better for you than a contracted tight muscle. Tight muscles do not conduct lymph well. They do not circulate oxygen well. They don't even allow the brain and the nervous system to function well. So it's not worth it. Take it from me, that's how the body works. And last time, up and over. Okay, roll over onto your back. So you should be feeling pretty flat, pretty awesome. You should be feeling like you can breathe probably a little bit easier into the rib cage just by asking that part of your body to do those things, right? Your abdominals likely feel toned because you've actually been working on that inner core. Let's just take it for a test drive and see. Now, I know I'm going to roll over onto my side and I'm going to use my hands to help me up. I don't care how toned your abdominals are. All you need is one bad cough in a bad position and you can hurt yourself. It's just not worth it, right? So I always use my arms. I just want you to take a moment and I want you to bring your forearms together and I want you to see how flat can you get your hands. Now what you can see in my hands is that my left hand will flatten quite a bit. My right hand, not so much, right? What you're seeing is the tension created by the typing and the texting and the social media, right? Well, if you can't get your hand flat into this position, it makes it really hard to start loading yourself in an all fours position. So, there are a couple of things that we can do if that's your ish. First, you don't have to get into all fours position on the floor. You can actually take your arms into the wall, right? So if that's what you need to do and that's easier, that's fine. But then I want you to come back and do some of the shoulder, arm, and wrist movements that we've been doing, because the reality is that not having strong wrists is like not having strong abdominals. That is a very useful, important part of your body. There is no part of your body that is more important than any other, in my opinion. Thank you. If you needed to, you could take your towel or whatever you're using and you could load the wrists with your hands kind of off, and you will load less. Notice that I'm allowing for that angle that I couldn't make by having my hand sliding off of something, yeah? If this hurts, you need to ask yourself, does it hurt and I shouldn't try, or does it hurt and I should give it a go? That's what I would tell you. Because quite honestly, not loading the wrists means that you're going to have weak wrists. So at some point, you're going to want to start to load the wrists. If you need to, you can use the fists. Some people find that a little bit easier. I'm going to go ahead and challenge my hand, even though I know that my wrist is not... It's hard for my wrist to gain strength if my wrist is showing signs of tension, right? So I'm going to come into all fours. I'm going to let my pelvis drop into neutral. If you take one hand and you bring it to the pelvic plane, your pubic bone and your hip bones, just like they were when you were on your back, should once again be lined up, right? And so this is what my spine looks like when it is lined up. I want you, excuse me, now to relax your belly towards the floor. Yeah, that's what I said. Let your belly hang, right? This is me with my belly hanging and an ostomy bag. You can do this. Just let it go. Can it release? Right? Remember we said it's hard to contract muscles that never relax, right? And many women have spent years sucking in their belly button to try and look as skinny as they possibly can, but they haven't been doing it with muscle contraction. They've been doing it by changing the pressure. And that's the problem with abdominopelvic pressure. We become reliant on it as if it is the accurate sensation, and it is not. It is not stabilizing the spine, and it's giving you a false sense of strength. So we want you to be able to relax. Obviously, if I've relaxed my belly to the floor and I need it to breathe, I would not be able to continue to talk to you and stay in this position. But I can breathe in my ribs. So just take a couple of rib breaths and see if you can leave the belly alone while you breathe. Could you just let it hang and breathe only in the ribs? Okay, if you could relax it and breathe in the rib cage, you're ready to take it to the next level. And I'll be honest with you, of all of the abdominal exercises I do, this is the one that I love the most. It just is, because it's the most effective at creating strength where I need it most, which is in my inner core. So you're going to inhale, and as you exhale, you are going to pull the belly button all the way up to your spine without changing the shape of your spine. Let's do that again. I'm going to let my belly relax towards the floor. I'm going to inhale wide in the ribs. I'm going to exhale the belly button up to my spine without changing the shape of my spine. Inhale again. Exhale the belly button up to your spine. This time we're going to hold it. Now, can you maintain that while you only breathe in the rib cage? If we are going to plank, if we are going to challenge our abdominals in this position, in all fours, on our elbows, anything like that. You know, I've seen tons of plank challenges since we all got into quarantine. What I tell people is, where is the core work? Right? People like to wedge themselves between their arms and their legs. The whole purpose to a plank is for your core. And it's for what you're doing right here. And you didn't even have to get your legs out into some sort of weird position, right? So just take 2 more deep breaths. This has been a lot of solid inner core work. So you're likely feeling it. You may be feeling it in your lumbar a bit. Last deep breath. Okay, let's go ahead and widen the knees. And if you can, come down into child's pose. Just let your back and your belly relax. if you kept up with me and you were engaging the right muscles, what you may have noticed was there's really no reason for anything other than what we did. We can challenge beyond what we did, and we can continue to load the abdominals so that they grow stronger and stronger. But from a functional standpoint, that's all we need to do to build functional abdominals, right? Beyond getting the rib cage and the pelvis stacked and in the right place, right? A lot of the problem for many is that then you stand up, right? Go ahead and take your child's pose over to the left and just kind of hang out there taking deep breaths while you listen to me babble on for another minute or so, right? Once you stand up, the legs put the pelvis over the toes and the chest then over the pelvis, right? Then it's almost impossible for the tissue, regardless of how strong it is, to create the kind of resiliency it needs to be truly supportive of the spine. So not functional, right? Not functional. Go ahead and walk your hands over to the right and just take your child's pose over to the right. Take a couple breaths and then we'll gently and slowly help ourselves up. Okay, so that was an entire hour of functional core work. Hopefully you found something that can feed you where you are, right? It's really, really important that you don't try and strain this process. This is a process of reteaching your muscles to work in a conscious, commanded way so that you don't have to think about them again and they simply operate back into the unconscious, right? The only reason we are exercising the abdominals is because the brain and the nervous system has lost track of that tissue. Just like that numbness you felt when your chest was traumatized during mastectomy, right? For a lot of people, because of the position that people are holding, where everything is way out here, this tissue in the nervous system has gotten stretched and the brain has lost track of that abdominal tissue, and so it's hard for the muscles to contract appropriately, right? If you have any questions, any desires, any demands, any insights that you had while you were taking the class and you want to share those with me, I teach better when I have feedback, and this format's been slightly challenging in that way. And so if you have something you want to share with me, just know that I really want to hear it. And I will be posting again tomorrow. Remember that Monday is a holiday, and so I will not be teaching on Monday, but I'll be back at it again on Tuesday. Okay, so I'll see you tomorrow. If you have any desires or things that you found that happened today, definitely shoot me a note. All right, babe. Bye, everybody.